Good day everyone, I'm Jericho Batinga. For today, we will be sharing our findings that we gathered together with my groupmates. So let's start with the cell cycle. What is cell cycle? Cell cycle is a series of events that takes place in a cell as it grows and divides. Cell spends its 90% in interphase and only 10% in mitosis. Interphase is where the cell spends most of its time growing, replicating its chromosome, and prepares for cell division. Interphase consists of 4 steps. These are gap 0, gap 1, synthesis, and gap 2. Gap 1 or G1 is where the newly divided cell enters this phase. During this phase, the cell increases in size and prepares to replicate its DNA. Towards the end of the G1 checkpoint is located. G1 checkpoint ensures if the size of the cell is big enough and ready to replicate its DNA. If there is no undamaged DNA in the cell, growth signals stimulate the cell to proceed to synthesis phase. But if the cell fails to enter the checkpoint, either the cell go through apoptosis or it will enter in a resting state or G0 phase. G0 phase is where temporary resting period of cell or maybe the cell reach the end stage of development and will no longer divide. Let's go to S phase or the synthesis. It is where the cell replicates its DNA. Throughout this S phase, DNA is continuously monitored for replication errors for S checkpoint. If there are no problems, the cell can proceed now to G2 phase. G2 phase is where the cell continues to grow and produce new proteins for division. So that the cell can proceed to the next phase or the mitosis, G2 checkpoint checks all the chromosomes be fully replicated and contain no other damages. If the cell passes the checkpoint, the cell will now enter the last phase of the cell cycle, the mitosis. In mitosis, cell growth and production of proteins stop at this stage. But in the middle of mitosis, there is another checkpoint, the M checkpoint, or the metaphase checkpoint. It ensures whether all the sister chromatids are correctly attached to the spindle and it checks if the cell is ready to complete cell division. Then, if there is no problem, the cell can now divide and repeat the cycle again. That's all for me. Goodbye!
Hi, I'm Crystal Joylandero and now I'm going to explain the relationship between cell cycle and cancer. First, cell cycle is the series of events where cells undergo cell division, thus develop and reproduce, and cancer is the uncontrolled division of cells. As to why cell cycle is related to cancer is for the reason that during the cycle, unexpected events may happen that could alter the proper division of cells. This is if the cell cycle regulators didn't function very well during the cycle. Hence, the proper division of cells will be altered. And the series of events may include mutation in the cells if their DNA is not properly and completely replicated. They may also include when damaged, unhealthy, and unnecessary cells have passed through all the checkpoints during the cell cycle that could change the right number of cells needed for the body. Now, if all of these events will happen or occur during the cycle, then it's more likely that cancer will occur because the cell cycle is now not properly regulated by the cell cycle regulators or the molecular signals that send signals to the cells to stop or undergo apoptosis when it is needed. But since the cell cycle regulators didn't function very well during the cell cycle, and so cancer cells have built up and continue to develop, and thus cancer occurs in the body. Now, this is why cell cycle is related to cancer. This is all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hello everyone, I'm Violet Kwan and let me explain why cell cycle is important. We all know that the basic function of cell cycle is to duplicate accurately the vast amount of DNA in the chromosomes and then segregate the copies precisely into two genetically identical daughter cells. But why cell cycle is important to the organisms? These following reasons will explain why cell cycle is important. Cell cycle helps the organisms in a way that it heals and repair the damaged tissues, cell growth, and avoiding the cancer cells. Cell cycle helps in healing and tissue repairing by cell proliferation. Cell proliferation is a process that results in an increase of the number of cells and is defined by the balance between cell division and cell loss. Cell cycle is also helps in cell growth. Cell cycle helps in cell growth by expanding the number of cells in an organism. So, cell cycle helps an organisms to grow or change. Another one importance of cell cycle is it helps to avoid cancer cells. Cell cycle helps in avoiding cancer cells by controlling the cell division or cell growth by the help of its checkpoint. So, we all know that cell cycle is very important to an organisms. It allows organisms to survive. Cell cycle helps organisms in different way, but cell cycle is important to happen to an organisms because if cell cycle is not happening to an organisms, the organisms will have complications like cancers, tumors. So, cell cycle is very, very important to happen to an organism. So, that's all.